Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? That's great. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry, but several people, just as several people in the assembly, I have problems with my voice, which is why I will do my best in order to be as audible as possible, because it's actually quite intimidating to be at the very end of the CHAM, because we have been lucky to listen to very many passionate debates and very pragmatic debates. We have been talking about prevention, collectivity, territories. We have been talking about the core construction. We have also talked a little bit about the digital topics like protection of data, artificial intelligence, teleconsultation, and things like that. And right now we are about to talk about something that is a little bit more abstract, something that is much more related to the virtual reality and virtual things, and something that is very much in the very heart of the discussion. This is the topic that was made popular last year when Facebook rebranded to Meta. And since then, not a single day goes by without the media outlets talking about the subject and describing the metaverse as the future of the internet, made up of new technologies that will change the way we interact, we work, we consume, and potentially treat our patients and ourselves. New technologies are controversial. We have been talking about it starting from yesterday, so we are worried about the safety of our personal data, of their impact on our mental health, of the loss of our social links if all of our actions are digitalized, and at the same time, we are quite aware of their benefits in terms of diagnostic efficiency, and this is efficiency, the other term that we have tackled yesterday, improved training and better management of certain pathologies. So to discuss this fascinating topic, I am very lucky to be surrounded by experts, and I would like to introduce them to you a little bit later. But today, well, we are actually here to talk about this evolution of the health sector, which is why, firsthand, I would like to organize the poll of the audience. Can we please turn on the lights? So, we don't have right or wrong answers. Please know it. It's just to know whether you have already heard of the metaverse. Who heard, speaking of metaverse? Well, yeah, we see the majority has already heard of the metaverse. Have you ever experienced on a personal basis with virtual reality? Have you already used the headset of virtual reality? Well, we see a little bit less people. Now, once again, on a personal basis, have you ever worked or experienced, on a professional level, have you already worked on the topics of virtual reality professionally? Well, we see even less people. And who among you so metaverse is something dangerous or futile? Do we have any people who saw metaverse as such? Who is skeptical about the possibilities that metaverse presents to us? Right, we don't know. You are correct. You're correct. Thank you very much. So Laurent, who is the president of France Facebook, should have been with us today, but unfortunately it was impossible for him, which is why he sent us a video that is quite pedagogical and without really bragging, as Facebook is always doing, it will allow us to have a nice intro. Hello, everyone, and thank you, dear Guy, for having invited me to this very important event. Of course, I'm very sad not to be with you physically, but I'm very happy that you have invited me to talk to you about the metaverse and all the implications that it will have for the health sector. So what is the metaverse, and how will it certainly change the way you work? This is what I will try to describe to you today. And first of all, I would like to tell you how we at Meta see the first evolutions of the metaverse. So what is this technological evolution that we think is the new frontier of the internet, the new great technological disruption that will build the internet of tomorrow? After having had some time ago the disruption of the mobile internet, the world is now going to enter into this new evolution. So the metaverse is basically going to be the set of virtual universes that you will be able to discover. You will be able to access them with one big difference. Today, you are looking at the internet, and tomorrow you will be in the experience. In the experience, thanks to virtual reality technologies, to the new devices that we're going to develop, And you will have all around you, you will have this ability to enter virtual worlds for a whole bunch of social, friendly game experiences, but also professional experiences. This evolution has already begun. It is clear that today it is not enough or it is not necessary to put on a virtual reality headset to enter the metaverse. There are already experiences of augmented reality, experiences of 3D on cell phones that are the very first step towards this environment. They change the interaction that we have with brands, with our businesses, and of course, they provide a different feeling than just experiencing the internet on a computer or on a cell phone. Many personal sectors, including payments, are now open to metaverse, but there are also other professional activities that are starting to develop in these new universes. Architects, training professionals are already using virtual reality technologies that allow them to change their relationship with their activity, their customers, their environment. Investments are important and they have already begun. And for the companies, there is, of course, an impact in many industries. So what are the industries today? What are the sectors that we see today that are impacted by this evolution towards metaverse? According to a McKinsey study that I would like to quote this morning, it is estimated in 2030 that the impact of this technological transformation could reach nearly $5 trillion. The entertainment sector, the gaming sector, the education sector, the distribution sector, and of course the marketing sector. So the productivity impacts on the entire economic chain are huge. Many are already impacted and are interested in this technological evolution and have taken the first step to build this metaverse. The health sector that brings us together today is a sector that is experiencing an absolutely dazzling development with these technologies. We observe that there are 4 main areas in which the metaverse is transforming your activities. These disruptions will certainly shape the field and the healthcare industry in the coming years. The improvement of medical acts, surgical acts themselves are already transformed by this technology. The ability to use metaverse to prepare and act on the patients is already here. Of course, the ability to teach, the ability to train remotely and around the world with virtual environments is experiencing a new development. Finally, telepresence and then the use of new technologies, including blockchain, for medical data. Now, if you look at the improvement of surgical procedures, and I have some examples for you, they have already been done in 2020. And you can see it here, medical procedures that have been done thanks to augmented reality technologies. This was the Dr. Abraham Deral in Latin America, and he was the first to use the augmented reality technology to prepare medical interventions. And today we think that the virtual reality of medical metaverse will allow you to prepare surgical acts, to train, to create digital twins of the heart or of any other organ to prepare and to improve the medical act. There is actually a French startup called InHeart, which works on the creation of virtual universes for cardiac surgery, and it is located in Bordeaux. The second opportunity is, of course, education and training. Remote learning, but now is recreated virtual worlds. Another French company, a young company called Simengo, offers interactive training with headsets. Finally, telepresence, meaning the ability to use metaverse to work with patients remotely. French companies are already using these technologies. Hypno VR, for example, has started to create virtual spaces that allow for mental health care, seeking to use virtual reality, the metaverse, to reduce pain and anxiety. Ability, that's another French company, offers functional rehabilitation using headsets, so patients will therefore be able, especially in remote area, to continue to have sessions of intuitive, personalized rehabilitation. So as you can see, your sector, the health sector, the health industry, is committed to the metaverse. I hope, of course, that you will be able to take advantage of these technologies, of everything that we are doing at Meta, to go even further in the months and years to come. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a great event. So, as you can see, as Laurent vient just explained all of this. All the sectors are already very much affected by the arrival of Metaverse, and health is also not an exception to all of this. Albert, you have been working with a lot of different companies about explaining to them all the different uses of the technologies. You are coming from the you know that in the healthcare sector there is this metaverse and virtual reality and so on, and we don't really understand what is the difference between all of these concepts. Can you please explain this to us? And why is it important whenever we're talking about metaverse to really understand the distinction between these three different areas? Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to go back to the definition of the metaverse, because when we're looking at the visions that are offered and the definitions that are offered by the big actors like Meta and some other actors of the international level, we have some convergence but also some differences, which is why I believe that it is very important for us to define the object itself before even going into the discussion. So the definition that we have adopted for the metaverse, it will be the future version of the internet. So that's the first very important point. This is not just a platform. This is not Meta. This is not virtual reality. This is not a video game. This is the future version of the internet. And this new version of the internet will have certain properties and qualities that are different from the internet that we know today. And the key factor here is that we will erase, and we have already started erasing the borders between reality and virtuality. So what does it mean? It means that the real world, such as we know it today, will become a screen, and we will project on the screen several layers of data, information, or representation. So what I want to say here is that Laurent was talking about virtual reality. So just to explain to you virtual reality, what this is. We are basically completely blocked from the real world, and we have the synthetic world that is projected in front of our eyes. So what I believe results from here is that these are not really the cases of use that will explode in the upcoming years, but especially the applications around the augmented reality and mixed reality. Augmented reality, you have already tried this if you have already tried to play Pokemon Go, because we have the real world and we are adding on top of it the unreal objects. Mixed reality has also some artificial intelligence that comes into play, and it allows us to have context and reality. So instead of having this Pokemon Go, this little Pokemon that is floating and staying somewhere by the table, so we will know that there is a table and there is an object that is anchored on this table. So just to try and apply it to the health sector, we could probably imagine that a surgeon that tomorrow would like to do a surgery. Well, this is something that already happened in the United States. Throughout his surgery, in augmented reality, he will probably have some information that will be coming into his glasses. That will be not really a big headset, but some digital data that will be coming and appearing on top of the body of his or her patient. Well, yes, exactly. When we are looking at the maturity of the technologies that we have right now, virtual reality and augmented reality, well, virtual reality is a little bit more mature than augmented reality today. Knowing this, we can see, I believe that we can see all these big actors such as Meta, but we can also talk about Apple and some others. All of them have in their portfolio the projects of augmented reality as well as virtual reality. So augmented reality will come into the market in 2023, I believe. All the analysts are here. But for the virtual reality, it will be 2 to 3 years, and glasses that are pretty much like the glasses that I'm wearing right now, that will be augmented reality glasses, will also explode in the upcoming years and will be widely used. So in the field of healthcare, we can really imagine that we will have a lot of additional information that could be simply data, but also can be representations that we can add on top of the reality. And can you please explain us why finally Facebook in October is talking to us about Metaverse? But you have been interested in Metaverse for years and years. So what makes us think that today is the right moment for all of these new technologies to be as mature as possible, or sufficiently mature for us to be interested in them and to want for us as patients or healthcare professionals to have experiences that will be qualitative enough? Well, I have been interested in this topic for years and years because I started my career in the field of virtual reality 20 years ago. So these are the topics that I'm very interested for years. So just to tell you a small anecdote, at the very first lockdown, I had this idea because I asked my daughters to leave their screens because we were all at home and we were quite soft about the screens. We let them play for long hours, and on Wednesday evening I let them play for a very long time, and I told them to leave the screens and to do something else. But they told us, well, we are not playing with our screens, we're actually playing in hide and seek with our friends from Roblox. So for those who don't know Roblox, this is a video game for teenagers, and it actually allows us to leave, but also to play and to leave a lot of different experiences in the synthetic world. So for me, this was quite amusing, but also very intriguing, and it actually made me think new things about all of this. Because what is really curious is that teenagers are blocked at home, but they are trying to reproduce in the virtual world the uses that they would have in the real world if they weren't locked down at home. So here, this is really the moment when I started. This was really the moment when I started to really dive deep into this topic, and I published the article in the French edition of Harvard Business Review. And together with my team, this is true, I didn't really say that, but I'm scientific director at the global level for the strategic firm, which is called Cabinet Arthur Little. And we have started studying Metaverse in order to go even further here and to understand what will be the maturity of the technology and what is also the maturity of the business of Metaverse. And I actually forgot the question that was asked. So how comes that today the technology is mature enough? So unfortunately, time runs quite quickly. So what happens is we have two things. First of all, we have three industries that are converging right now. First of all, this is the video game industry, which was the industry ignored, broadly ignored, widely ignored by all the other sectors, and this has been the case for years. Right now, there is an awareness that is rising, that the gaming industry has developed things that are absolutely incredible, that can represent value for other sectors. So this is the industry that is composed by different actors that are developing tools for remote work. And also we have the actors from the media and social areas. So we can see that they're all coming right now to the very same market and are trying to fight for the shares of this market. And this market is called Metaverse. So that's the first element. And now, also for the very first time, we have the three ingredients that are all united and present. This was not the case like 3 years ago or something like that when it appeared, because we have this impression that Metaverse is something very new, but this is something that exists for years and years in the virtual world and so on. Well, it hadn't really worked until now, but we have strong chances that it will work this time because we have the explosion of users, especially among the young generation, but also among the generation that is a little bit older, and we can see it from the point of view of different perspectives that I will not go deep now. So we have the technology software that also has a lot of actors that have developed a lot of infrastructures, and based on these infrastructures, the ecosystems can be created and also create a lot of value around these digital platforms. And finally, the third important ingredient here is that we're coming to a certain maturity of hardware. We're talking about the headsets, but headsets are not the only technology. We have this whole infrastructure, the network, the power of calculations, and so on. So today we start really knowing how to really having this know-how, and I believe that, well, probably these are not still hundreds of millions, but at least millions of people who are already connected to these networks. So yeah, indeed, we see the more citizens we have on these big networks, the more federated become all the communities of patients and people who go looking for the information in all the social media. We have been talking about people who go to the social media in order to get some information to find their doctor and so on. So we can really imagine that Metaverse will have a lot of people, and the more people will be there, the more the health sector will have to get interested by that. Catherine, you are a psychologist, and you are working with people who are affected by cancers, who suffer from cancer, especially in the management of their sexuality. We will be talking about it because sexuality is a very taboo question, especially whenever we are suffering from cancer, and we would like to explain how Metaverse can be beneficial here. But even before that, the name of the conference is Usefulness or Futile Character of Metaverse. So you told me, oh, I see it rather as something dangerous. Can you, as a health professional, explain me what is very worrying for you in Metaverse or in this new technology from the point of view of the work with patients, but also for you as a health professional? Well, first of all, I would like to tell you that when I have received the invitation from Guy, and I would like to thank you, Guy Valencia, for this invitation to participate here. I don't really know whether it was because of my big ego, but I actually started started looking at the program right away. So I was like very proud to be able to go to CHAM. And I said, yes, of course. I replied to him to say that I will be coming. And then I was looking at the topic that I was about to tackle. And that's when I had a big moment of loneliness. Because me, personally, I can see all the people who raised their hand. I did not know what was Metaverse. Well, I totally can understand you, Catherine. So I called him and I told him, I'm really sorry. Thank you very much. I'm very much flattered and so on, but I don't know what that is. He said, well, this is absolutely ingenious. You have to say that. I was like, well, for half an hour, it won't really be half an hour. Well, he didn't really have a lot of arguments against that, but he was very sympathetic and he explained to me, and then I also went looking for some information, and the very first reaction that I had, well, I was like, we are creating a world of psychos, because finally we will no longer know who we are. We are right now us, but what will happen then? And the second reaction is that the society is really in a bad situation to make us create virtual worlds to exist. And the third reaction that I have had, well, probably not the third reaction. I was like, well, I was trying to go a little bit deeper into the topic. So I started questioning everyone. So I met someone and I was asking them, do you know what Metaverse is? And finally, I progressed, because then I was like, what are you thinking about Metaverse? So this was my personal evolution. And then my son, who did philosophy studies, he said, well, Mom, this exists starting from it exists for centuries and centuries, and he has been talking to me about some examples and so on, going back to 16,000 and maps that are from this time and so on. And he said that some elements of Metaverse were already there, and he said that my reality is not the reality and is not the truth. The reality is I think what I am. So probably these are the first element of the Metaverse. All right. And then at a certain time I said, well, we don't care what you think. What is important is what can we do with this? And then, well, we actually have seen this short video a couple of minutes ago. Well, I am a big fan of TV series. Well, I watched this series about this young surgeon who is autist and who is absolutely a genius, and he can make diagnoses of things that others cannot see. And he is doing the surgery that is very, very dangerous with these open heart, and so he's taken this avatar of the heart and he's trying this surgery, and we can see all the constant parameters that are quite flat, which means that the patient died, and he's doing a couple of gestures, and finally he finds the right gesture and he finds how it will be perfect, and he decides to do this surgery, and he does this surgery. So I believe that this was absolute genius, and I decided, well, this is a good use of the Metaverse. So for the trainings as well, the trainings for the nurses and so on in practice, I believe that this will be very good. Now, going back to my field, which is cancerology, this is something that I know best. And I told myself, well, I was thinking about it. I told myself, well, finally, I receive a lot of patients in oncosexuology, of people who have who have had the surgery of prostate cancer, and it actually implies several difficulties in the sexual field and absence of erection and so on. And they are very ashamed, and they don't dare to talk about it. At the same time, they really need to talk about it. And I decided that probably throughout an avatar, it would be possible for them to organize the groups and talk among them and see their problems and have the discussions of their experiences, and probably somehow overcome this shame and find solutions. Well, this was one of the proposals that I had. Another proposal was, and I'm really sorry, we have been talking a little bit yesterday with Vincent Olivier. We have been talking about those who are helping the family members, because we are not in the world where we're all separated. And, well, this is the caregivers. This is the term that I don't like. Parents, children, or especially wives and husbands and so on. So how many of them are like, I cannot stand it anymore. I'm suffering and I'm tired and I no longer want my companion or my lover, my ex-lover, just because of this or that. And no one hears us, and we're ashamed to say that, because finally they are suffering, and I'm ashamed because this is not me being ill. So we have all of these problems, but throughout an avatar, I believe that these people probably would have a voice and would be able to express all of this and to say that I'm tired and I'm all alone and no one is listening to me. Well, it's very interesting that you are starting to understand how this can be materialized in Metaverse. There was an experience that was done in last February by the association called Narcotics Anonymous that has united a community of patients in the shape of avatars online. So Narcotics Anonymous, these are people who are affected by addiction, alcoholic addiction or drug addiction. So I would like to show you a short video that illustrates all of this, and you will see the principle, because as an avatar, we can see that people whose face is invisible and whose body is invisible. So probably this will be like a big CEO of a company who is not recognized because he's participating as an avatar in these meetings of the group. And basically, it can allow him to let go of certain barriers or overcome all of this. Hello, my name is Fred and I'm an addict. Hello, Fred. Hello, my name is Lola and I'm an addict. Hello, Lola. This is me. I didn't do 2 years. I did 7 years of meetings until the age of reason, as we say. Why? Because I had to wash what I was in my head. All I have in my life today is a bonus, is only love. And even if I have resumed a completely classic life in the society and so on, the place where I find the most humanity and when I spend some time with people from Narcotics Anonymous. Today, abstinence of all product is obvious to me, thanks to you, thanks to these meetings, thanks to this brotherhood, thanks to these discussions, these loves that you were talking about, Caroline. I used to be a very shy person. When I came to the meetings, I didn't take the floor immediately. I needed several months before I was able to share for 3 minutes. At the very beginning, I would stutter a couple of words and then I would go scarlet. I would have the impression that I was sweating, my hands were sweaty. So yes, through an avatar, it can be easier. At the very beginning, I was ashamed to come to Narcotics Anonymous. I didn't want to be recognized. We have had a drug addiction. We know there is no cure. Well, it's not like we know it, but I tell myself that maybe if I stop coming to Narcotics Anonymous, one day I will be tempted to take some more. And from my experience, I know that I cannot take only a little more. But then the experience is also to dare to come, to dare to take the floor. So right here, through this video, we can see the really pragmatic applications in front of the patients. Michael, you are a doctor, but you are also an entrepreneur.
Doctorpreneur.
Yes.
Yes. Vous avez d'abord lancé une application de santé connectée.
You have launched the app of Connected Health. Just before, you were very much interested by all the bricks that are part of Web3, blockchain, NFT, and so on. You will probably explain to us what you're doing at the very beginning, because I believe that a lot of people are very interested in it, those who are present here. So how can we become an entrepreneur coming from the health sector? So how did you become an entrepreneur from being a doctor? So what was your conviction and what were the consultations that basically pushed you to start this career?
So, merci bien.
Thank you very much. I will be speaking English because unfortunately I don't know a lot of terms in French. I was working in Paris and in Martinique at the very beginning of my career. And I was in internal medicine for quite a while.
Feel free to.
Yeah, so I will switch.
No worry.
I will switch to English. So I was in a hospital over 12 years as a doctor, and everyone knows how difficult it is, and that there are many structural issues in healthcare, not only in Europe, Germany, France, everywhere in the world. And I said in the beginning was just, okay, there needs to be some internet things, some software to support doctors and patients to come together and to share data, to communicate, because the communication is so difficult, right, in healthcare. And it's about missing data, it's about non-information that causes a lot of issues. And so I built a platform in the beginning together with a partner of mine who's also a doctor. And the idea was just to make an ecosystem that brings people together, hospitals, caregivers on the one side, and patients on the other side, and their families, to share data, to speak to each other. To
get the whole ecosystem, in fact.
Yeah, exactly, and to get prescriptions online, to connect your tracker devices. And then we very quickly noted, okay, the most pressing issue in healthcare is data, right? Because, and I was also not only in a hospital, but also in the pharmaceutical space. I was a drug safety officer in a CRO and working with some trials, Pfizer for Glaxo, for some of the biggest companies. And the problem about the medical data is there is a lot of medical data out there, but it's very unorganized, it's in silos. You do not know where the data is coming from, where it's going to. It's impossible to monetize or to mainstream the data, to use the data, right? So insurance companies have data, hospitals have data, doctors and practices have data, even pharmacies and big pharma companies.
And they don't share them.
Yeah, they don't share, because not only because they don't want, but because there's legal issues, there's, juridical issues. And we said, okay, let's use blockchain technology to overcome this, at least up to a certain point.
Can you please explain what is blockchain? Because I'm not sure everybody knows here what is blockchain and what are NFTs, in fact.
Yeah, so,
just really simply, if you can.
Very, very simple, yeah. Blockchain is basically, it's a chain of information that relies on the rest that is there. And you have different nodes, it's called nodes, and centers where this information is stored and compared to each other. So it's basically impossible to falsify data or to manipulate data, because once it's on the blockchain, it is always verified that this block, the previous block, the next block, and that chain is still authentic.
So it improves the security of our data.
Improves the security and especially the transparency, because you can use it to follow up the flow of data, which is very important, especially when it comes to medical data. And speaking about NFTs that we use for data, NFTs mean non-fungible tokens. It's a unique piece of information on the blockchain that is only there once, okay? When you compare it to other pieces on the blockchain, like Bitcoin, every one of you has heard about Bitcoin. I think there are millions of Bitcoins, but there is always only one NFT, which makes it perfect for medical data, because it's unique, it's on the blockchain, you can trace it, where it's coming from, where it's going to, right? And you can connect it to things like smart contracts to pay. So when you put anonymous data, depersonalized data onto the blockchain, you know where it's going to, you know where it's coming from, you know it has not been manipulated, and the great thing is you can pay and to execute all the legal stuff in one action. So that's perfect.
Okay, so we will try not to lose everybody. Thank you very much. Can you give us your vision of the future of medicine, thanks to Web3?
The future of medicine will be more inclusive for everyone. It will include patients, families, and everyday people on the one side, and the caregivers and the professionals on the other side. The idea of Web3, when we speak about the Metaverse, it's an economy, and that's what we haven't spoken about before, because a lot of people think the Metaverse and Web3 is about VR glasses and augmented reality. As you said, it's not like, it's just, VR and AR are just tools. They're just ways of giving information or explaining information. But what is important about Web3 is the inclusion of everyone in the space and building the real economy, and especially the data economy in cyberspace, when we use some 80s term, right? So that is what's important. That is what defines, in our opinion, the Metaverse.
Okay, so I will switch back in French. Donc, ça rejoint vraiment.
So it actually goes back to all the discussions that we have had throughout these 2 days, that practically and finally all the concepts, all the technologies that are related to Web3 and Metaverse will allow to all of the actors from the healthcare system, meaning the patients, the pharmaceutics professionals and healthcare professionals, they will be all collaborating to provide this treatment journey that will be very safe and that will also be adopted, co-designed and personalized for the patient. Albert, how, if I am a doctor or a company from the healthcare sector or a pharmaceutical company, how can I prepare myself today to what will happen within 10 years? Because we have to be pragmatic. We're talking a lot about Metaverse. Metaverse will be very mature and accessible to everyone. That's what we hope. And we hope this will happen before the period of 10 years finishes. So how can I prepare myself right now to what will happen in 2030? Well, I can answer for the companies when we are very interested in it and we're analyzing Metaverse. This is something that is absolutely absolutely certain. This is a revolution that is ongoing, so we have no doubt about that. And it's in the same way as all the users, and the economic model has been transformed 5 to 10 years ago by 10 to 15 years ago by the arrival of the cell phone, smartphone, and the digital economy went from computer to the smartphone. So that's the same thing that will happen here. So it's absolutely certain, doubtless. So we also have some factors, and when we are interested by the factors that can accelerate the adoption of all of these technologies, the development of these technologies, the adoption of different uses, and so on, among these factors, some are potentially very impactful. But at the same time, they are also quite uncertain, meaning that in 10 years we will have like a crossroad, like a disruption, a pivotal point, and no one knows right now what the future looks like. So when we are a company and we have to establish a strategy in the uncertain environment, it's very interesting to start proceeding by scenarios. So we will start by identifying the critical parameters, meaning the factors that can impact us but are uncertain. And once this identification is done, we can build up possible scenarios, and then have a strategy that will somehow answer all of these scenarios. So to have at the same time the backup plans, alternative solutions, and so on if the scenario doesn't work. So it's also very interesting when we're talking about scenarios. When I'm thinking about all of these topics related to metaverse health, and metaverse in a global overall way, there is a lot of criticism that one can hear whenever we talk about metaverse. First of all, people are talking about the negative impact from the point of view of the energy that it represents. But at the opposite, we also can say that there will be the multiplication of pandemics can also be, as we can see with teleconsultations that we have seen that has been developed. This can also be a very important tool, the tool that will allow us to progress. So the more we will have pandemics and lockdowns, the pandemics and the lockdowns are the factor of the development of metaverse. They are motivating this development. So, Michael, I wanted to go back to you. Whenever you are developing your tools, what is the criticism that you can find and meet? Because there's a lot of skeptical people, and we have to reassure them. So how do you reassure them around this idea? Telling them that this is something that is useful and that will be useful for everyone. This is something that is positive from the societal point of view.
Yeah. So first of all, of course, there's criticism, and I, as a doctor, I also had initially, of course, first thinking about the problems that can occur. First of all, you have to make sure this is secure. We speak about medical data. Medical data has to be 100% secure. It's private data. It's the most valuable data in the world. So you first have to think of that. You have to follow the medical guidelines. You have to follow the standards. Let's speak about GDPR compliance here in Europe. Let's speak about HIPAA compliance in the United States. Let's speak about medical standards like FHIR, the DICOM, files, all these things that are coming together when you speak about healthcare in the internet. And that was the first approach. And what we said, we approach it that way. We said we have to do, right from the start, evidence-based medicine. Because, all these things, the terms blockchain, NFTs, metaverse, sounds all very fancy. But in the end, it's not worth the discussion if it's not real medicine that you do. And so we cooperated with some of the biggest university hospitals in Europe. One of them is Lausanne in Switzerland. And we officially treated the first patient in the metaverse together with them. Okay. We wanted to show that this is really useful for the patients, for the outcome on the one side, for the security, and on the other side, for the professionals, to make this a real useful tool. Right? As you say, it has to serve the people. It has to be medicine in the end. And that's what was our goal, and that's what we're trying to build. And blockchain technology is just a tool for people to have this transparency and security and trust. It's all about trust. Oui. And if people don't have trust, it's not working, right?
Oui, si je résume, en fait.
So just to summarize, instead of being against a certain technology, the technology that is difficult to understand, that is like blockchain or NFT or cryptocurrency or something like that, it's probably better to think about the experience of the patient, experience of the client, experience of the user than technology itself. So whenever we're creating a website, whenever we're going on social media and so on, very few of us are asking ourselves about the technology that is behind all of this. We're all thinking about what we can make out of it. So Kathleen, for you, you have had your journey with respect to this question. So with respect to what you have said before that, you have been talking about how you can accompany your patients, especially to overcome some taboo questions, shame, and so on. You have also thought about an experience or about a platform, rather, that can be alive in Metaverse and that can allow us to have this sharing of experience. Can you talk to us about it? Well, this is kind of a crazy project, but finally, because we're talking about Metaverse, and I have been thinking, why couldn't we organize a meta event with patients, and especially with patients who suffer from cancer, which is a metastatic cancer, because very often these patients feel very isolated and marginalized. And, well, for people who have the breast cancer, they might have just like 1 day of meeting and things like that. But otherwise, they are a little bit outside of the system and very isolated. So to create some sort of virtual museum and give them the floor. So first, this will be the very first of such events, and also create some personal artwork. It can be photography, it can be dance, it can be painting or whatever, so that they would be able to do it from their home or from their hospital bed and so on. And everyone would be able to come to this virtual museum, because what is good in Metaverse is that there is no border, geographical border, I can say, and it can be an interaction with the general audience. And that's what I like as idea, because art is something that allows us to express emotions, express suffering and so on. When we look at Frida Kahlo, when we look at Van Gogh, these are perfect examples of this. And it will allow the patients to express their fear, their anguish, their worries, and to share it with their peers, but also with the general audience who don't really know all of these pathologies. So I believe that this will be very interesting in Metaverse. This is also probably a possibility to look at cancer from a different point of view than just numbers and the data that we are used to get about cancer and the pathology. So it will also allow to have this prevention, but also sharing experience, and to accompany somehow not only patients, but also the caregivers. Yes, of course, but I believe that for this, I will also need some other collaborators, those who have more knowledge than me, but I don't think that this will be very difficult to find. Well, and also someone who will be financially participating in this project. Yeah, for those who are interested, please do not hesitate to contact me. François-Emmanuel Blanc said a little bit earlier that in the healthcare sector, we need real people talking to real people. And I believe that this is a little bit the apprehension whenever we are talking about Metaverse. So we are saying, like, if we stay in the virtual world and only avatars are talking to us, we won't be having a real physical link, a real physical connection to people. Albert, can you possibly tell us how Metaverse will not be against this real relationship between humans, between people? Well, I don't know really if I can provide you an answer to this question. Nevertheless, I'm living in the perpetual paradox, because I am a big fan of technologies, but at the same time, I'm worried by the impact that they can have on the society, on the individuals and our children, and especially with all that is about the negative externalities, people talking to real people. We can see that with social media, we have some things that are very good because we have no limits. We can create international communities at the global level and basically have a lot of people that are thinking exactly the same thing, with who we have a lot of topics that are of common interest. But at the same time, I believe that this also creates a problem, because it creates some enclosures for all of us. So we have very niche and specific communities. So we're all together thinking about the same thing, convinced and strengthening our points of view and so on, and strengthening our bias as well. So I believe that this is kind of a negative point here. So I was interested by negative externalities. I believe that this is something that is very important, and I believe that every single company should also be interested by this negative side. I don't know whether this is the answer to your question, but this is the answer that I can give you. Well, not exactly. I was basically expecting an answer that an avatar is something that is someone real is behind an avatar in Metaverse, and that's what we were telling the patients, that finally they will be meeting a real real doctor, a real physician, and this will not really degrade the relationship between people, the intellectual exchanges and medical exchanges. Yes, indeed. In a certain way, this is the case, and I have been talking to a lady several days ago after the conference that I was given on the topic, and she told me, well, I could no longer talk to my son, who is a teenager, and for some months we are only meeting each other in the video game rooms, and we are in the synthetic universes, and finally I'm able to talk to him in this universe. So the advantages are definitely here, but we have to pay attention. Well, I was actually asked to pay a lot of attention to the time because our Minister, François Bon, is on his way, so I believe that we have to conclude here. Thank you very much. The very last conference will be about the augmented human and transhumanism, and we are very impatient to hear what will be said later on. Thank you very much for all of these discussions, and I wish to all of you the very good conference. Thank you.